Good afternoon and welcome to one and all, especially Professor Liba Babu, Ria Susan John, Professor Vinilal, Professor Usha Kumari, other faculty members, and to all my dear friends. So today I plan to share my views with you or some ideas on harmony with nature. It's a very general topic, and in fact it may be a vague one also. And the topics I'm going to cover for the day's discussion is you'll have naturally an introduction with the basic definitions, followed by challenges. Then on environmental ethics will be there, which we'll be studying about sustainable development, land ethics, and environmental justice, followed by ecofeminism, consumerism, and human rights. These are the area which I propose to cover during the span of 1.5 hours or less than 1.5 hours. And during this session, you are free to interrupt me at any point whether you want to get any clarification on the topics I am presenting, or if I lack clarity in my presentation, or even technical issues are there. And I assume that you can see the slide, right? You can see the slide.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we
Okay.
can.
So harmony with the environment. Before I start, I must thank Professor Liba in a very special way, and also Professor Ria and Vinulal for accommodating me in this program, because this is handled by very many experts. I'm not claiming that I'm an expert in environmental studies or environmental science as such, but I'm interested in environmental science. That is only justification and excuse which I can put forth. So we start our presentation with seeking the blessings of God and your support. So the first one is that this you can see, it's a very famous quote of Mahatma Gandhi. He says, the earth has enough resources for our need, but not for our greed. These are often referred quote of Mahatma Gandhi on environment. He says that there is sufficient resources for everybody in this world, but because of the greed of people, some are deprived of it. It's a very pertinent question. Even this pertinent even during this period of pandemic. I may come across that later in during my presentation. So the first is that the earth has sufficient resources. Since I am a believer, I'll be always linking with God and the presence of the omnipowerful, that He created the world. If at all someone attribute to the creation part of the universe, or whatever it may be, but there is sufficient resource for each and every one of us, but not for our greed. That is a problem. And then come with the second one. You can see the figure of a great man, and also used to call him as a funny man. He published a paper or a book. It is actually technically it is called as encyclical, because it is a tradition of the Roman Catholic Church. Their supreme leader, the Pontiff, we call it as, the Pope used to publish or materials with certain didactic purpose to educate people at large on certain pertinent issues. So he published a work last year. The title was Laudato Si. That means praise be to you. That is, in that he used the word our common home. He preferred to call the earth and the universe as a common home for each and every one, not only of the present generation, but also the future generations. So this is our beginning, that the first part I said about the earth has sufficient resources for everybody. And second part I said this is a common home for everyone. From with this we move to the further, and I'll go with the traditional definition of environment. You can read it, I'll also read it. Environment literally means surrounding in which we are living. That is, it includes all things in which we are directly or indirectly dependent for our survival, whether it is a living component like animal plants, we call it as biotic, or non-living components like soil, air, water, abiotic. So environment consists of both living and non-living components of the universe. And the Environment Protection Act 1986 of India, it defines environment is the sum total of water, air, and land, their interrelationship among themselves and with the human beings, other living beings, giving the definition also. Introduction of contaminants into the environment that cause harm or discomfort to human or other living organism or that damage the environment, which can come in the form of chemical substance or energy, such as noise, heat, or light. So introduction of contaminants into the environment can be broadly said as environmental pollution. This is known to you all very well. Now, pollution are classified into two, that is point source pollution and non-point source pollution. Point source pollution, non-point source pollution. Now, what is a point source of pollution? A point source of pollution is a single identifiable source of air, water, thermal, noise, or light pollution. So the source is known. It is a single identifiable source. Example, water pollution from an oil refinery wastewater discharge, noise pollution from a jet engine, thermal pollution from an industrial process unit. All these are point source of pollution. We can identify the source. I'm sorry, to address the issue also is more simple. Whereas the non-point source of pollution, it diffuses the source of pollution and refers to those inputs and impacts which occur over a wide area and are not easily attributed to a single source, like runoff from agricultural areas draining into a river. Although these pollutants have an originated from a point source, but is having long range of transportability and multiple sources. So the non-point source of pollution has the two components, that is one, long range of transportability and multiple sources. So such kind of pollution we call it as non-point solution. Fine. Can I proceed? Please respond.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If anyone want to stop in between, you can do it. I can raise doubts also. Now, this is a long list of types of environmental pollution, which is very common and popular with you, with the people who are involved in this kind of activity where we conscientize people or activists. We start with air pollution. I'm not elaborating on what is air pollution. You can Google it. You will get ample information within seconds. So I'm just naming it and proceeding further. So air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution, thermal pollution, soil or land pollution, radioactive pollution, light pollution, littering. All these types of pollution are there. I'm not elaborating on each one of it. You know what it is. So what's the effect of pollution? This is a very important point you have to address. One, it increases mortality and morbidity. Mortality and morbidity. Mortality means the death rate. It increases the death rate of people. Morbidity is the incidence of falling sick. So because of pollution, many of the diseases now which is prevalent in the society is because of pollution. Or otherwise, in a simple language, it is a major cause for such disease or pollution. I may cite some of the diseases, respiratory diseases. The growing incidence of respiratory diseases, asthma and other diseases, is a result of the increase in the volume of pollutants in the atmosphere. So respiratory diseases, then you have cardiovascular diseases, heart diseases in common language, we call it as heart diseases. A major cause for cardiovascular diseases is also pollution. Then allergic diseases, various types of allergy caused by pollution. Skin irritation and rashes, also part of allergic disease, is there. Hearing loss because of the sound pollution is a major outcome of pollution in our country or in the world. High blood pressure, because people find it difficult to cope with the pollution. So the body take its own mechanism and it increases the blood pressure. Then comes the stress and sleep disorders. Many people experience this kind of stress and sleep disorders. One cause is pollution. Then very important and attention-seeking area is the development defects on infants. And you know what happened after the nuclear bomb explosion in Hiroshima and Nagasaki and at different other areas, because development defects of infants and that even past generations. Then certain neurological diseases is also the outcome of environmental pollution. Cancer. I'm not saying that all types of cancer is a product of environmental pollution, but certain types of cancer is a result of environmental pollution. And going along with the point number 9, it is the birth defects of infants is the outcome of environmental pollution. These are the effects on health, whereas other areas where it's on environmental, there are other issues. One, biomagnification. Biomagnification is increasing concentration of a substance such as a toxic chemical in the tissue of organisms at successively higher levels in a food chain. Food chain is that there is a food chain in the system. So this is affecting the food chain. Ultimately, it is also affecting the human beings. Then ocean acidification due to excess emission of carbon dioxide is another outcome of the pollution. Very important and major issue is the reduced biodiversity as a result of invasive species. Certain invasive species enter in, and as a result of that, weeds and other kinds of biotic and abiotic things creep into it. Not abiotic, biotic one, and that has impact on abiotic surroundings also. Then it also alters the soil and chemical composition of environment. Smog and haze reduce amount of sunlight received by plants, which adversely affect photosynthesis. Is experienced in Delhi and other areas of our country itself. Soil may become infertile after or a period of time. Then acid rain, that is of course sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides causing acid rain, is also an impact of or effect of pollution. With this background, we move to the major part of our discussion, that is on the environmental ethics. What should be the view of general public on environment? How can you tackle the issues of environmental pollution and so on? We'll discuss in this topic, and I'll define it first. Environmental ethics is a branch of ethics that studies the relation of human beings and the environment and how ethics play a role in this. Environmental ethics believes that humans are a part of a society as well as other living creatures, which include plants and animals. This is a starting point of environmental ethics because human beings are part of the society, but they alone is not constituting the society. Other living creatures, including plants and animals, are also part of the environment. So this is part of the environment. So this awareness is the starting point of environmental ethics. This is a multidisciplinary subject. As I mentioned in the introduction to our program, I said this is a multidisciplinary one. It involves environmental law, environmental sociology, eco-theology, environmental economics, ecology, environmental geography, and some more subjects. Look, environmental law, you know it for certain that almost all the countries in tune with the UN resolutions and advices enacted laws to protect environment. Environmental laws are there. They are subject to further amendment and modification over a period of time. So that is a very important one, environment law, because when framing an environmental law, the consideration before the lawmakers is the good of the society and of the environment. That's one. Then environmental sociology is a very important one. This part we'll discuss later also, because who is the victim? There is a very important terminology. So I think it is Sanskrit. I'm not thinking. My knowledge says that it is Sanskrit. Vastuhara. Vastuhara means can be translated as the dispossessed. Tell me if anyone heard the word of the victims of development. Please, someone could on the mic and respond. If you give the name first, it will be better. Victims of development.
God. Yes, sir.
What is it? Please. Your name, please. Please share it.
Hello, sir.
Please explain. What is your understanding on the victims of
Displacement of
development?
people due to sir,
Yes.
because of constructions of dams, etc. People are displaced. They
Right.
lose their livelihood, their places of living.
Right. Okay. But tell me, they're not compensated by the government? Are they not
The
compensated by
government
the
say
government?
just a bit of them are compensated, not all of them. Most of them are displaced.
Okay, you mean you are not happy with the quantum of compensation paid by the government, right?
I I don't know.
Okay, fine. You can take position. No harm in taking position. I add to your point, saying that this is not only the question of monetary compensation, because in a country like India, I'm focusing our discussion on India. In a country like India, the people are attached to the soil, not in terms of its monetary reward. There is an emotional attachment to them. They will say that this is the land where my ancestors happen to live. They have an emotional attachment to it, sentimental attachment to it. Of course, the economic aspect is also there. So environmental issues have a sociological component. Then come the eco-theology. Theology is actually, by definition, it is a science on God. It itself is a funny definition, because how can we make or develop a science on God? Anyway, eco-theology deals with the theological part of environment, because very often people do undermine the importance of environment for very, but believe me, the religion do have a role to play in this, because most of the sacred scripts, almost all the sacred, prescribe certain measures to protect environment. For example, the Code of Moses, I don't know how many of you are familiar. Moses is considered as the first law. In Code of Moses says that you should not harvest till the land in the 7th year. because you should leave the land barren on the 7th year. It's a prescription which ensure the fertility of the land. There are other prescriptions are there. In other religions also you can come across these kind of thing. Because such ideas, because in Indian concept we have, I'm using the word Indian concept that should not be limited to a particular religion in the Indian society at large, the concept. Before you cut a tree, you should ask permission from the tree. Asking permission to the tree to cut the one. And not only, but even the birds are nest on the tree. So this is an important one. Though the practice of animism, what is animism? Worship the forces of nature. Do have an environmental component inside things. So there is eco-theology. Then environmental economics is there is an important part of economics. It deals with that, how much you can exploit, how you can compensate, and so on. Then ecology is also an important area on environmental ethics. Environmental geography is also important one. With this, I move to the next one. There are certain principles of environmental ethics. First, respect earth and life in it all its diversity. It's a very important one. Respect earth and life in all its diversity. You cannot have a monolithic view on life. You should not develop a monolithic view on culture. You should not have a monolithic view on nationalism also. You should respect earth and life in it all its diversity. The use is not the prime important. Use, utility, these terms I may deal with that later. But at the moment, at present, I confine it to this. You should respect earth and its life in it, in its all in its diversity. Then care for the community life with understanding, compassion, and love. Understanding the community, in understanding the stakeholders of the community, understanding the situation which we live. All these are very important one. And you should have compassion not only to other human beings, but also on to plants, animals, and so on. And your compassion should rise to a level of love. Also very important. When I use the word love, I use it in a broader sense. You heard of the word agape? Anyone? Some of you may respond. Agape, A-G-A-P, agape. Agape. You heard of the word. In Greek language, the Greek language, it is important is that there are a vast vocabulary. In Malayalam, even in English, we have shortage of words. So in Greek language, love, the word which we translate into love has different words are there. One is eros, E-R-O-S. Eros is selfish love, having someone, anticipating something. Then you have filio, that is affiliation to someone because of the position and standard and what so me. Then there are other words also. This is agape is a word used in Greek to denote love, which is not seeking anything. The right definition is that the right perspective is this: I love you simply because I love you. I repeat the words. I love you simply because I love you. There is no reason for loving you or anything, a person. So here comes the important issue. You should love the environment, the components of the environment.
So,
Simply, yes, please. Please.
so what is the difference between agape and selfless love?
Agape and selfless love are one and the same. Selfish love is eros.
Oh.
Eros
Okay,
is
okay,
selfish
so got
love.
it.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
eros is selfish love. You seek something, but in agape, you seek nothing. So if you are a nature lover, if you are a human being, you should love one another without expecting anything in return. So it's a cardinal principle of environmental ethics. Someone may ask that why should you care for the wild animals? Because I love wild animals. As a justification. Then very important thing, you should have a democratic societies that are just, participatory, sustainable, and peaceful. I should be cautious in explaining this part, but I cannot. I, I must do it. I should do it. Okay. Democratic society doesn't imply that you are guided or forced to cast your vote in favor of someone periodically or after a gap of a certain years. It is not a democratic society. Democratic society is a society where the will of the people is reflected in administration. I repeat, the will of the people is reflected in the administration so that the society will be a just society. You remember Gandhi is very important. Unto the last, unto the least. It's very important one. A society which care for the least, a society which care for the last is a democratic society. Then that society should be participatory. It should not be an autocratic system. It should not be a dictatorship. It should not be a police raj. There should be police to maintain law and order, but it should not be a police raj. And the system, it should be sustainable. It's not a short-term arrangement. It should be a perpetual, continuous, and that should also be peaceful. It's very important for understanding environmental ethics. Now, last one, secure Earth's bounty and beauty for the present and future generations. You have to secure it. You cannot exploit it. Very often we use this word. The students of economics like us use it. You have to exploit the resources. The right terminal should be, you should secure the resources for the present and future. That point we'll discuss later when we discuss about the eco-theology, sorry, ecofeminism and other points related with ecology. Now I introduce two concepts related to environment, that is intrinsic value and instrumental value. Intrinsic value is the value that an object has in itself or for its own sake. An object with intrinsic value may be regarded as an end or end in itself. The value could be moral, spiritual, symbolic, aesthetic, or cultural. So the thing is that you attribute value to a thing for various grounds. For example, it may be moral reasons. In India, there is a practice of regarding banyan tree as a sacred tree. It's a spiritual aspect of it. Certain commodities or certain items we consider symbolically, we consider it as valuable, maybe due to cultural reasons. So this is intrinsic value. Whereas instrumental value or eccentric value or contributory value is a value of objects not as an end in themselves, but as a means of achieving something else. Instrumental value lies not on the object, but on the use of which the object can be put into. This is a very important difference. You see how it can be put into some use, and that guide the value of it. Mind well, when you use the word use, use had something to do with the value system of the society. Or I may use the word, it is subjective. I don't know if you're familiar with these two terms, objective and subjective. Please, someone, please respond. Objective and subjective. Familiar or not?
That subjective is like a person's personal opinion, while objective is like a fact. Like there cannot be multiple opinions or like that to some point or
Yes, you are
anything.
right. You are right. When we say certain things are objective, it remains the same irrespective of the person, place, or any other variable. For example, simple straight example is 1 plus 1 is 2. Always 1 plus 1 is 2. That is for a African it is 1 plus 1 is 2. For an American it is so, and even for an Indian it is 1 plus 1 is 2. Whereas certain things like pain, pain is subjective. It depends on the person. Or happiness is subjective. Even satisfaction is subjective. Similarly, use is a subjective thing. Because, for example, now take a case, extreme case of a strict vegetarian. For him, a non-vegetarian dish is a useless item. Whereas for a non-vegetarian, the same dish is a useful item. You got the difference. This is what happens. Depending upon the person. Alcohol. Alcohol is a useful commodity, those who consume alcohol. But those who are not consuming alcohol, for them it is a useless item. It's subjective. How here comes the issue when you talk about use, that is subjective. What way you use it, for what purpose you use it, and so on. So instrumental value depend on the use, and therefore it is subjective. Whereas intrinsic value is always objective. So this is a difference between one difference between intrinsic value and instrumental value. Now we address the possible solution to these issues. We talk about environmental ethics. Then what are it? The starting with one point is that animal rights, the position of the proponents of this view is that the rights of animals to live free from human exploitation and abuse. All animals, irrespective of their nature, have a right to live free from human exploitation and abuse. It is the idea that some or all non-human animals are entitled to the possession of their own lives, and that their most basic interests, such as the need to avoid suffering, should be provided the same consideration as similar interest of human beings. So this stands for a basic premise that no living being should be disturbed, tortured, or harmed for the benefit of human beings. Or maybe your possible justification, because these group claim that animals do enjoy equal rights. Since this is an online platform, we cannot have much interactive discussion, but I'll straight away move to the criticism. Otherwise, we could have a session on discussing the subject itself. The first one is from the lawyer's point of view. The lawyer will say that because an animal is not entitled or eligible to enter into a social contract and thus cannot possess of rights. Is it clear to you? Because when you enter into a contract, animals cannot enter into a contract. Therefore, they cannot claim any right. Do you agree with this view from the point of view of legal science or juridical sciences? Yes or no?
Personally, no, sir.
That is your biased opinion, but from the point of a lawyer. The position is this because animals cannot enter into contact. You cannot apply the principle of minor here. You cannot. Since you cannot apply the principle of minor, you cannot enter into a contract on behalf of an animal. It's a criticism. Please. Respond.
Yes, and animals do not even have a personality of their own. They cannot enter into contact. They are not even as comparable to human beings.
That's it.
They
That's
do not
a
have any
criticism.
rights. Yes, sir. Yes.
That's a observation of those who support that animals can be used for research purpose or any other activity is because of originate from this point. Okay, we may elaborate later. Of course, I may proceed. May I proceed? Second one, animals may be used as a
Yes, sir.
resource so long as there is no unnecessary suffering. Underline the word unnecessary suffering. They may have some moral standing, but they are inferior in status to human beings. And insofar as they have interests, these interests may be overridden, though what counts as necessary suffering or a legitimate sacrifice of interest varies considerably. Interest varies considerably. This we call it as the utilitarian position. This is a very controversial one. Remember, during the days of slave trade, the same principle was applied even for human beings. Even in certain part of the world, even human beings are subject to suffering, claiming that it is for the overall good of the country. It is a part of our extreme position taken, what we call it as, within inverted commas, nationalism. So here the position is, they say that it's not, because there should not be unnecessary suffering, but the ultimately human being should be the important, the interest of the human being should be the major concern for those who take decision. Okay, can I proceed? Or you want to disagree with the position? May?
So we'll proceed.
Okay. Now the second concept or a position is that anthropocentrism or humanocentrism. That means mankind as the center or the most important element of existence. So that was what he raised in the criticism above, especially as opposed to God or animals. No one should be given importance other than human beings. Man is the supreme authority and has right to use the resources according to his own choice. Some argue that this philosophy is the root cause of problems created by human interaction with the environment. But it can be otherwise too. For a healthy and sound life, sustainable environment is necessary. I'm sorry. So here the position is this. They say that man is the center of everything. He is the important element. Therefore, no other element of the environment have a superiority over man. So this is what we call as humanocentrism. All should be focused on human beings. Okay. Now we move to the third one, radical environmentalism. It's a grassroots branch of the larger environmental movement that is emerged as ecocentrism. Ecocentrism is a philosophy or perspective that places intrinsic value on all living organisms and their natural environment, regardless of their perceived usefulness or importance to human beings. So they say that the environment should be protected. The priority should be the protection of environment, and that should have nothing to do with the usefulness, but only for protecting the environment. There are various activist groups, like you may be familiar, Earth First, Earth Liberation Front, Earth Liberation Army, and so on. There are various organizations out there that address these kind of issues. They are known as radical environmentalism. Then there is another perspective or point, is that deep ecology. It is an ecological and environmental philosophy promoting the inherent worth of living beings regardless of their instrumental utility to human needs. It advocates radical measures to protect the natural environment regardless of their effect on the welfare of people. It is a holistic approach trying to find meaning to life beyond material things. This is an important point, that it tries to find meaning to life beyond material things. Anyone heard the name of Ukuoso? Ukuoso?
Is he someone who promoted natural farming?
Exactly. His book, can you give the name of his
No,
book?
no, sir. No, I don't know.
One Straw
just heard it.
Revolution. One Straw Revolution.
Okay.
The Malayalam version is also available. Otta Vaikol Viplavam. There is
Yes,
a
sir.
Malayalam title of the book, One Straw Revolution. He said that you should not till the land, sow seeds, but just wait. Nature will provide you all that you want to require. You can live in harmony with the nature. Nature will not hurt you. So you accommodate everything in it. And I can give you an example of a place where they practice this in a limited sense. Anyone happen to visit Madras Christian College? Madras
No,
Christian
sir.
College? It's a beautiful campus. It's a beautiful campus. After these corona menace and all, some of you should opt for to visit the campus. It's a beautiful campus. It's a vast area in the city. It's a forest area is there. Other wild animals are also there. Poisonous snakes are also there. But the thing is that they won't hurt any one of it. And they say that there is not a single incidence of snake bite in the campus. I happened to visit the campus more than, I think it's several occasions. In fact, I visited the campus and stayed in the campus on several occasions. And they claim that, so they warn us that if you happen to see a poisonous snake when you on your way, just wait. The snake will go its own way and you can proceed. Don't hurt it. So this is a different approach on life, a holistic approach on life. The deep ecology prescribe this kind of thing, that life beyond material things. Happiness is not solely depending on material things. Of course, now we do have an awareness on all these things because of this monster COVID-19. I'm not elaborating on that now because it's unpleasant also. Okay, I'm moving further. Now I move to the next part of any doubt or any clarification, or anyone want to supplement what I said so far? Please.
No, sir. Please proceed.
Okay. Now we move to the topic sustainable development. In fact, the word development is an ill-defined word in the world. Very often, what all you do for development is self-defeating. So that's why this word sustainable development is very important and can be defined as human society must live and meet their needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. In fact, the present model of development practiced in almost all the part of the world is looting the future generation. That's why in Hindi we say that this is choron ko duniya hai, sab chori karta hai. You loot the future generation. So the sustainable development prescribes that you should not compromise the ability of future generation to meet their need without affecting the requirements of the future generation. You can venture into development, and this is very clear that we can continue to have economic growth so long as we develop better ways of managing the environment. How you manage the environment is very important one. Better way of management, because the growth is possible without affecting the environment. There should be balance between naturalistic value as well as humanistic value for respecting ecosystem. So there should be a value system which you are operating that should respect the naturalistic value as well as the humanistic values. Very important one. Development should be people-centered, participatory, environmentally sound, and having a human perspective. Very important one, because it should be people-centered. It's not prescribing something for the people. When you spend money, we will be using introducing the word conspicuous consumption. When you spend crores of rupees on concrete structures without any particular use for it, this is violating the basic principle of sustainable development. You demolish structures which can be used for another 100 or 200 years, and planning or proposing to construct a new structure, spending 32,000 crores or 40,000 crores of rupees in a country where there are 40 crores of people go to bed without even one square meal in a day. I'm not talking about the corona period. In the normal period, there are almost 40,000 people are starving in a country, and where you spend 40,000 crores of rupees to construct a structure which is replacing, or after demolishing it, the one which can be used for another 100 years. So this is not people-centered development. You are planning to have airports in each and every district is not people-centered. We move further. It should be participatory. The stakeholders should be taken into account. The views of the stakeholders should be taken into account. Should be environmentally sound. Should not adversely affect displaced people. I think I just mentioned the word Vastuhara, the dispossessed one, the victims of development. You go for huge hydroelectric projects and displacing lakhs of people without properly rehabilitating them. This is not sustainable development. Or the human perspective should be very important in that. In sustainable development, there should be economic growth with equitable distribution. So the income generated in the country should be equitably distributed, not equally distributed. It is not possible and feasible, but it should be equitably distributed. It should enhance the people's capabilities and widening choice. We are not prescribing a system which you have a very traditional kind of life, having very minimum requirements and so on. No, because the fund of knowledge is prescribing new things so that you can also bank for, or you can go for it. That should be there. Now, in sustainable development, the priority should be for poverty eradication, self-reliance, self-determination of the people and government, protection of the rights of the vulnerable, the marginalized, the minorities, and indigenous people. All complicated topics. I don't know if I should explain it or not. Yeah, I should try to play safe. Okay. poverty eradication should be the prime concern of sustainable development, and the rulers who propagate sustainable development should address the issue of poverty eradication. You heard of the Chinese philosopher Mencius? Chinese language they pronounce as Mencius. Yes. Anyone?
Sorry, sir.
Mencius, you heard of him. There is a very famous quote of Mencius. He says that rulers should not fight against other countries. They should fight against poverty and ignorance. I'm not quoting the first part of his quote. It is a very dangerous one. I'm not quoting that. But the second part is this: rulers should fight against poverty and ignorance. So sustainable development addresses the issue of poverty eradication. Remember, Gandhi says that when you plan something, think about the poorest man you happen to see, and think how it is going to help him or how it is going to bring Swaraj to him. Gandhi used a beautiful word, the Swaraj. This is an important one. Priority should be poverty eradication, self-reliance of the people. It's not dependent. If you ask the people to go to the public distribution system, PDS or ration shop every month for your kit, it is not a sign of development. Of course, you may argue with me saying that is an extraordinary situation and of course extraordinary measure. Well, I accommodate that argument. But in the long run, a country should not, or people in a country should not bank on subsidies, but they should be self-reliant. People have a right for self-determination. Then the rights of the vulnerable to be protected. When I use the words, the groups, you should not quarrel with me. Women, the Dalits, that is a marginalized. Dalit word meaning is the oppressed. The minorities, I'm not talking about the affluent minority. There are minorities, even linguistic minorities are there. The minority sex, the transgender is also an issue. Very important one is the indigenous people. We call it as tribals. But the interest of such people should be addressed. Any kind of development, just to provoke you, just to provoke you. Now, you know that there is a vaccination drive is going on, right? And for vaccination drive, it is mandatory that you have to register in the COVID portal online and get your time slot allotted, and you should go to the center where they distribute or they administer COVID vaccine. Is it right? Please. Is it
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
Now, tell me, where there are lakhs of people in the country who have no access to internet and smartphone. What about them? They are not eligible to be vaccinated.
They are.
And when?
Sir, there should be something separate measure like for them.
But do you ever happen to hear a single word from any ruler of our country about this kind of people?
No.
Then you make all measures to ensure that they will come and vote. But you are not in a position to make provisions for giving vaccine to these people. It's a question of indigenous people, the vulnerable sections of the society. Okay. Again, sustainable development also addresses the issue of empowerment. Empowering people and groups is very important one. Then it ensure the free and meaningful participation of people. Finally, whenever you plan for a project, major project, there should be an environment impact assessment. Without assessing the environmental impact, you should not proceed with any of your major projects. I'm not naming any project now because it's a bad time. It should be a dangerous time also. I'm not elaborating on the projects and programs. Because why we talk about all these things? Because the present generation has a duty to guarantee the natural survival of future generation. And protecting the rights of future generation, that is the planetary rights and obligations. To right to receive the planet in no worse condition than the previous generation. To inherit the comparable diversity in natural and cultural resources and have equitable access to use and secure benefits from planets. You should have a right to receive and transfer it to the future generation. And future generation do have a right to breathe uncontaminated air, drink, and clean water. Live in an area that is free of toxic waste and other pollution. Right to have energy resources, access to arable and fertile land. They have a right to survival of generations and moral duty of present generation to prevent potential harm to environment. I'm not elaborating. These are very self-explanatory statements. So this is what we call it as sustainable development. Any questions? Any question? Shall I proceed?
Yes, sir.
From this, I move to the land ethics. Land ethic or land ethics. A land ethic is a philosophy or a theoretical framework about how ethically humans should regard the land. The term was coined by Aldo Leopold. The book was a San County Almanac. Leopold argues that land ethics should include non-human members of biotic community. A thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise. So any action which is against the interest of the biotic community on land is against the interest of it. So it's violating the principle of land ethic. Some other views are there. These are the controversial or different views. This is just for your information. There is an ethics which is based on economics. Economics is defined in different forms, and those studied economics in your +2 class or subsequent class are familiar with it. And there is a wealth definition by Adam Smith. And the major criticism was that it is a science of Mammon. Mammon is a god of money in the Semitic religions. Judaism, Christianity, and all, they call it as Mammon. It's not Mammon. Mammon is the god of money. So economics is basically concerned with the self-interest. So this says that you should accommodate all advance in technology with a view to profit without concern for its potentially negative impact on human beings. This is economics. Look, in a country where more than 134 crores of people are on the verge of a calamity, a businessman is claiming for his profit, not normal profit, but abnormal profit. You know, I'm referring about what?
Yes,
Referring
sir.
about what? On
Yes,
what
sir.
topic I'm
Vaccines.
Vaccine,
Pardon?
Serum Institute.
Exactly. When he marketed it for 150 rupees, he said, I'm getting normal profit. How can he claim that or he demand for a higher price when he already accepted that he is getting 150 rupees is getting a normal profit or a nominal profit? The word he uses is a nominal profit. Now, a company may face crisis on a future, the early phase, because It may not be able to cover the spending on research and development. When he said that he already got profit, then how can he claim 800 rupees per dose of a vaccine? See, this is economics. You are promoting the philosophy of greed. You want to maximize your profit without considering of others. So this group, those who economics-based group, says that you can do anything on an environment without, if it is profitable to you or in bringing benefit to you. There is another one is a utilitarian one that is based by Jeremy Bentham. He's a jurist also. Will be studying German theory, utilitarian theory in law. And there is a J.S. Mill, John Stuart Mill, that they say that a morally right action is that which produces maximum good for people. Maximum good for people. So if some people are benefiting and a very few are losing, don't worry about it. So this is one. So this group may say that, okay, you are cutting trees, but that's no problem. That is affected people are minimum, but majority is benefiting. So that is a utilitarian based one. There is another group which is known as libertarian based. They say that libertarianism is the belief that each individual person has a right to maximize freedom to acquire property, so long as it does not interfere with the other people's freedom. In economics, we had a philosophy known as laissez-faire. Let it free, because every person will try to attain maximum benefit for him, or satisfaction for him. So satisfaction, the aggregate of satisfaction for all the members of the society is the satisfaction of the country, because it's not the right perspective. So such view is also. Then there is ecologically based one, say that land has an intrinsic value. These are the, apart from the land ethics, you have these kind of views also. From here, we move to our crucial part of our discussion for the day. Don't worry, I'll confine my class within time frame. Don't worry, I won't extend my class beyond the time frame of 4:30. We move to environmental justice. This is a very important one for each of us. Environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. So it's a people-centered one. People should be taken into account, their views should be taken into account, irrespective of their race, color, nationality, or income, when we plan and implement a program, because we ensure justice to them. So it tries to address the issue of environmental discrimination. And there is a clear discrimination against the minorities, Dalits, the marginalized, because the interest of the dominant and powerful groups are protected. Pressure groups are there, powerful lobbies are there. They ensure that their interest is always protected. So when there is an environmental degradation, that will be affecting some sections of the society, and some sections will be least affected. It burdens some more. I'll give you an example. When you locate a waste dumping site, you prefer to locate your solid waste dumping site in rural areas. That means you assume that the rural population is designed to bear the burden of the waste generated by the urban people. In Trivandrum, there was a big controversial area, Velapilshala. Now it is not there. The waste dumping yard is not there. This issue was very vital and live for many years. So this is an important one, because you want to protect the interest of someone at the cost of others. So environmental justice plead for justice to all groups and protection of environment. From here, move to ecofeminism. Ecofeminism is a philosophical and political theory and movement which combines ecological concern with feminist ones regarding both as resulting from male domination of society. The Great Indian Kitchen, right? Ever happened? All of you happen to see the movie, The Great Indian Kitchen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the issue here is that a male-dominated society prescribe policies and measures which may not be taking into consideration of the issues faced by the female. Okay, before I move, you heard of Chipko movement? Chipko movement?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes, sir.
And who was the behind it? Man behind it?
Sundarlal Bahuguna.
Exactly, it is Sundarlal Bahuguna because he prompted ladies to prevent cutting of trees because it is against the interest of the women in the community. So it linked feminism with ecology. We should have a better understanding on what is feminism. Someone could educate me now. What is your perspective on feminism? What is feminism?
Feminism stands for equal rights of both men and women.
Or a better treatment to women. My question is this, very specific. Is it they stand for better treatment for women or equal rights for men and women?
Equal rights for men and women.
Is it that is practiced?
Changes are coming, but still not.
That's my problem. That's my problem. That's the issue here. Because the so-called feminists are not having a balanced view on certain issues. That's why they happen to become a laughing stock in the society. Right? So the feminism is actually addressing the issue that equal rights for men and women. It's not a preferential treatment. Of course, there can be positive discrimination. What is positive discrimination? Positive discrimination.
Glorifying some.
No, positive discrimination. Can you even give an example also if possible? Positive discrimination. The first question is that can have a
reservation.
Reservation to?
Yeah, reservation to women are a form of positive discrimination because it is there to bring out a positive outcome from it.
Okay. Did all women are eligible for reservation?
In certain criteria, I believe all women are.
We will have a discussion later on another occasion on these issues. I hope that we'll have offline classes at least after a few months. Then we'll have a discussion on these kind of topics. Anyway, now I'll proceed further because I have to confine my presentation in the time frame. Otherwise, Professor Liba will not be happy with this. Okay. So ecofeminism is actually a philosophical political theory that is better treatment for women because there are many famous and Vandana Shiva Mehta Patkar is very famous for that is the Narmada Andolan Bachao Andolan and so on and the other one. Okay. Now what is the idea behind ecofeminism is one, there is a connection between women and nature. First one, there is a connection between women and nature. As you know, in Indian concept, we call it as Bhumi Devi, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there is a feminine aspect is attributed. Is the I don't know it's real or not attributed one, but there is apart from that, women depend more on environment for their livelihood than men. Then second or the third important aspect is that in a male-dominated society, the concern of the female will not get proper attention. That is what is happening in our country. It is happening in almost all parts of the world. The who decides the important elements, or sorry, the important issues pertaining to women in our country? Men or women?
People who are making laws, men.
Okay, who decided that we should not have a one-third reservation in Parliament and law Assembly of women? Who decided not to have? Men or women?
Men.
That's it. The problem is that issues of women are discussed by men and they take decisions. So feminism address the issue, say no, it should not be the one. So the ecofeminism advocate that the please.
So will you please give an example for the second point? Women depends more on environment for a livelihood.
Okay, fine. In a take a rural environment, in a rural setup, for firewood, what is their mainstay? From environment. Then food products, environment. Is it comfortable for you now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now we come to the last part of our last bit one, consumerism. Consumerism is a social and economic order that is based on a systematic creation and fostering of a desire to purchase goods and services in ever greater amounts. There is another meaning for consumer that's in reading. Consumer is also used for denote consumerist movement, engage in consumer activism. But we are not discussing on the second one, the first one. Now, what is consumerism? Consumerism is a selfish and frivolous collecting of goods and services, which is otherwise known as economic materialism. Without considering the requirement of others, you amass as much as possible for you have. And it destroys individuality and harms the society. Why it is consumed or purchased? Because you want to maximize your satisfaction. And this is promoted in a capitalist society where profit is the sole criterion of the producer. Of course, the globalization that we'll discuss later, not today, the globalization contributed to this consumeristic attitude or approach of the people. So it's a culture of consumption. Vast production and wider markets are there. You have urge to have a new and finer varieties of commodities, and it creates a culture of luxury. Here I define what is luxury. I'm not defining what is necessary comforts and luxury. Luxury is that kind of consumption which will not add any benefit to you, but to show your position and status. So it is not giving any additional utility to you. On the other way, it is actually on to show your position. So a culture of luxury. So the consumption is not influenced by or prompted by your requirement, but it is induced by advertisement. Advertisement do play a very important role. And the majority of the cases, the advertisements are misleading. So in a consumerist society, you are guided by the advertisement, leading to conspicuous consumption, unwanted consumption. So in consumerism, you have a materialistic approach towards life. Life is to enjoy, and I put the word enjoy within inverted commas. You shift away from the values of the commodities like spirituality, integrity, and so on. And it is against the very basic principle of simple living, eco-conscious shopping. Consumerism doesn't provide for anything of that. This leads to waste production. Waste products are unwanted or useless materials. Consumerism produces a lot of waste products. So developed countries with a high level of consumption proportionate or more produce proportionate or more than proportionate waste generated. As you know, a US citizen consumes 30 times as much as an average Indian consumes. And it is 100 times as much as a person's world's poorest countries, the consumption pattern. These are the examples of one. Now, in consumerism, the life of a product is shorter than what it was before. The introduction of new technology, products with old technology will become obsolete. The word used is that planned obsolescence. The life of the product will end after a certain period, maybe real or not. Now, you know that the government of India is, in fact, decided to implement a scrap policy that all automobiles with the age more than 15 should be scrapped, irrespective of the working condition. And that is on the pretext of protecting the environment. My simple question goes is this: can we not develop a technology which can reduce the pollution from an old vehicle or not? Please answer to me. Can we not develop a technology which can reduce pollution, emission of pollution from an old automobile? Yes or no?
Why not, sir?
Then why the government is so particular that all should discard your vehicles and buy new vehicles? This is to protect the interest of the automobile industry. This is the interest of the automobile. It's not only the case of automobile, the mobile phone. You remember the first generation mobile phone was of a different type with a long antenna and all, followed by the new one came then how the new keypad was then touch screen, smartphone. I don't know, the technology goes on. And you may say that no, that program will not run on this because the software is different. This is all planned obsolescence. So waste is generated from the production of new products and also the old product. Now always remember, the new technology may not be new at all. Interesting to know that in my childhood, we used to use charcoal to brush our teeth. That was a practice all over there. Then we were told that charcoal and salt will damage your teeth, so that you should use toothpaste. Now, the Colgate company, that is the multinational company which have the major share in the toothpaste market, now introduced toothpaste with the charcoal and salt. Is it so? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The consequences numerous. I'm not elaborating because there is a time constraint to me. I'm skipping that child. The last part is on the human rights and environment. All human beings depend on the environment which we live. A safe, clean, and healthy, sustainable environment is an integral to full enjoyment of all range of human rights, including right to life, right to health, right to food and water and sanitation. At the same time, protecting human rights help to protect the environment. In 2008, the UN Human Rights Council unanimously adopted the resolution number 723, recognizing that climate change poses an immediate and far-reaching threat to people and communities around the world and has implications for full enjoyment of human rights. What are the things happening because of this environmental degradation? One is displacement of people and refugees. Second one, conflicts. because conflict between groups, conflict between tribal groups, and so on, because of loss of arable land, water, and so on. Rights of indigenous people are violated. Child rights is also violated because of environmental degradation. Development is also adversely affected because the poor citizens depend more on environment and they are adversely affected, and their right to life is also affected because of this. There is a quote by Pope Francis: cry of the earth and the cry of the poor are the same. Cry of the earth and the cry of the poor are the same. Now the last point, within 2 minutes I'll wind up, then open for discussion. Can we tackle this issue of environmental demand? Resource management should be less energy intensive. Less energy should be used. Should be suitable to local ecology and needs of the people. The technology which you adopt, production technique which you adopt should be suitable to local ecology and needs of people. Should be cost intensive, less cost intensive and more viable in terms of economy, ecology and culture. We should move from fossil energy to solar or other source of energy. Very important thing, from a market as a master to market as it should be driven by market. It should be driven by the demand of the people. Finally, from a materialistic goal to human satisfaction goal. So if you can adopt such a step, that will be more suitable. Now the floor is open for your feedback and queries, or I pronounce my end remarks. Please. Please. Any questions, or your you can supplement it also what I said. You can raise your doubts. If any shortcoming is there from my part in presenting or highlighting certain points, or disagreement on the discussion part of it, you can do it.
So,
Please.
so how do you define a morally right thing?
Morally right thing. Right. Okay. Morality itself is a subjective one. Morality itself is a subjective one. But our society is guided by certain principles which are designed and developed by the society at a large. And a thing will be moral will remain moral so long as it doesn't hurt others. My simple definition is that anything will be moral so long as it is not going to hurt others. Is it comfortable for you?
There are points to debate, but yes, sir, for the time being.
What else? Because it should not hurt others. Of course, the society do have its own prescriptions. So there should be some position which you have to take on moral issues. But before prescribing or labeling, not prescribing, labeling an action immoral, you should take into account that is it is going to hurt anyone else with a sound mind. I'm not saying that perverts or abnormal mind people may say many things. Otherwise, it should be a morally right thing.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. More questions?
Sir, at the beginning, did you say you said intrinsic and instrumental values, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, will you give a simple example? Because at that point, I didn't understand what we're speaking about. So I didn't get it clear.
Now, you happen to see the sunrise at Cape Comorin. Is yes or no? Or sunrise, just sunrise, right?
Yeah.
Now, what is the use of it?
There is no
Is it
material use.
marketable? Yeah, that is there is an intrinsic value. There's the use itself is that. Whereas if it is a marketable thing, or if we could quantify it, then that is the use value. So you have a use value and intrinsic value. The what value which involved. So that is what we call it as intrinsic value. Okay.
Okay. Yes. Sir. Then instrumental.
For what purpose you use it? As an instrument of getting some use. Animal, you happen to see an elephant and wild elephant, it has a value. But if it is used as a domestic, of course, you cannot domesticate, you tame it. Tame it and use it, that is the instrumental value.
So I didn't get it. I'm sorry.
Same commodity can have both. Use value the value of the thing as it is. I said the case of an elephant, a wild elephant. You happen to see a wild elephant, you enjoy it, you say, oh, it's a good scene. And that is the intrinsic value. Whereas if it is tamed and used for other purpose like transporting wood, log, and so on, then it becomes the instrumental value of it. Okay.
So there are multiple uses for a single thing. It is according to a person
Can
to
be
decide
how
how
you
to use
utilize
it.
it. That's it. So that is it. That's exactly it. The environment as such as a use. When you use it, you have different use. Fine.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir. Got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any more interventions?
So,
Please.
so what do you mean by ecofeminism? It's just the connection between Earth and women.
Beyond that, because the degradation of environment is most adversely affecting the women in the society. So they advocate that preserving environment is definitely a greater thing for the women than men. So they are addressing from the feministic point of view that the environment should be protected for the welfare of women. So that group of people, because the displacement and all other issues. That's why Vandana Shiva and the Medha, more specifically Medha Patkar, gave leadership to the Narmada Bachao Andolan and so on, because it was the women folk who suffered more because of the displacement of people, because of the construction of the Narmada reservoir and the, of course, all other dams, because a chain of dams are there.
So does it apply to the modern theories? In today's world, for the modern woman, does this concept apply?
Now you have to define modern women, because if you mean urban, then if you are specifically referring about urban elite, it won't affect them. Urban elite, but those who are from the slums, those who are from the moffusils of the city, they are affected by it. But if was a class 1 officer, male or female, living in a city, the impact will be the same for male and female. Our concern is
Now I
more
got
on
it,
the rural women, then the Dalits, I repeatedly use the word Dalits, and the marginalized.
Yes, now I got it, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now I understood the difference.
Thank you. Shall we wind up the session?
Yes, sir. If nobody else has any questions remaining, then we could conclude it, sir. We can wind.
I'll prefer to conclude with this session with a prayer request. Before I highlight the prayer request, I should thank Professor Liba, Professor Ria Susan John, Professor Vinulal, and of course, Professor Usha Kumari is also on the group of attendees, and the college principal and the director and those who took the decision to involve me in this program. I thank them all. I thank you for your participation. And I end this session with a prayer request because we should all earnestly pray for our motherland. We are passing through a very serious period of crisis. This is not to become disheartened, but remain positive. And I should pray for all COVID-19 affected people. And I use the word affected people, not infected people, because COVID is not only a disease which affects a person, but the entire family in the area. So the affected. Then I should pray for the frontline warriors of COVID, like doctors, nurses, paramedical staff, supporting staff, health workers, police personnel, providers of essential service. You should pray for them. You should pray for the families undergoing the trauma of death of dear ones. Of course, there is a controversy also there on the nature of death they had, because the cause of death. We respect your prayers for me also. May God bless you and keep you safe. Thank you very much.